There is a place in life where everything feels familiar. A place where the routines are predictable, the risks are minimal, and the outcomes are almost guaranteed. This place is called the comfort zone. Inside the comfort zone, life feels safe. You know what to expect. You know what you are capable of. And you know that if you stay within the boundaries of what you already understand, nothing too painful or embarrassing will happen. But here is the uncomfortable truth. The comfort zone is not always comfortable. In fact, for many people, it quietly becomes a cage. A cage built from routine. A cage built from fear. A cage built from the silent belief that this is as far as I can go. Many people live their entire lives inside this invisible boundary. They stay in jobs that no longer inspire them. They silence dreams that once excited them. They avoid opportunities because the risk of failure feels too heavy. And slowly, over time, something begins to fade. Their curiosity, their courage, their belief in what is possible. The comfort zone does not destroy ambition overnight. Instead, it slowly convinces people to settle for average, to settle for good enough, to settle for a life that feels safe, but not truly fulfilling. But deep down, most people know the truth. They feel it when they watch someone chase a bold dream. They feel it when they imagine the life they could have lived. They feel it when a quiet voice inside whispers, "What if you tried?" That voice is the beginning of growth, because outside the comfort zone exists another space entirely. A space where things are uncertain, where mistakes happen, where fear appears more often than confidence. But this space has a different name. It is called the growth zone. The growth zone is where new skills are built. It is where confidence is developed. It is where ordinary people transform into extraordinary versions of themselves. Every successful entrepreneur, every great athlete, every inspiring leader, every person who achieved something meaningful, at some point, they stepped beyond what felt comfortable. Not because they were fearless, but because they decided their dreams were bigger than their fears. The truth is, fear will always exist. Fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of looking foolish, fear of uncertainty. These fears are deeply human. They are part of how the mind tries to protect us. Your brain is designed to keep you safe, not necessarily to help you grow. It prefers familiarity over possibility, predictability over adventure, security over transformation. But growth has always required something different. Growth requires courage. Not the kind of courage that eliminates fear, but the kind of courage that moves forward despite it. This audiobook is about that journey. It is about understanding why comfort zones exist, why fear holds people back, and how anyone can gradually step into a life filled with progress, learning, and possibility. Throughout this audiobook, you will discover powerful insights about the psychology of fear, the hidden costs of playing it safe, and the small but powerful actions that lead to personal transformation. You will hear stories that reflect real struggles people face every day. Moments when someone hesitated, moments when someone failed, moments when someone almost gave up, but also moments when someone took a single brave step forward and discovered a version of themselves they never thought possible. Growth does not happen through giant leaps. It happens through small acts of courage, repeated over time. One decision, one risk, one uncomfortable step. That is how the comfort zone begins to expand, and as it expands, something amazing begins to happen. Your confidence grows, your perspective widens, your potential multiplies. The things that once felt impossible slowly begin to feel achievable, and the life that once seemed distant becomes real. This audiobook is not about forcing yourself into reckless decisions or chasing unrealistic dreams. It is about learning how to stretch your limits, challenge your fears, and gradually step into a life where growth becomes a daily habit. Because the greatest tragedy in life is not failure. The greatest tragedy is never discovering what you are truly capable of. Somewhere inside you is a stronger, braver, more confident version of yourself waiting to emerge. A version of you that can handle challenges. A version of you that can learn new skills. A version of you that can build a life far greater than the one you currently imagine. But that version of you exists outside the comfort zone. And the journey toward that version begins with a simple decision, a decision to stop letting fear define your limits, a decision to explore the unknown, a decision to step into the growth zone. This audiobook is your guide for that journey. And by the time you reach the final chapter, you may realize something powerful. The comfort zone was never meant to be your home. It was only meant to be your starting point. Welcome to Limitless Listening, a place where powerful ideas meet inspiring stories. On this channel, we explore some of the most transformative lessons from motivational and personal development books. Our goal is simple: to help you expand your mindset, strengthen your confidence, and unlock your true potential. Whether you are working toward a dream, trying to overcome self-doubt, or simply looking for inspiration during your day, this channel is designed to support your journey. So take a deep breath, relax, and allow yourself to fully immerse in this audiobook experience. Let the words guide your thoughts. Let the stories inspire your actions. And most importantly, let the ideas you hear today challenge you to grow beyond the limits you once believed were permanent. Because the more you learn, the more you grow. And here at Limitless Listening, growth has no limits. Welu du wo wan the limits, you 13 the Windherm. Chapter 1. The Illusion of the Comfort Zone. A place where you know what tomorrow will look like, where risks are minimal, and where discomfort is almost non-existent. It is a place where you rarely feel anxious, rarely feel challenged, and rarely feel afraid. This place is called the comfort zone. At first glance, it seems like the ideal way to live. After all, who wouldn't want a life with less stress, fewer uncertainties, and predictable outcomes? But beneath this calm surface lies a powerful illusion, one that quietly holds people back from growth, fulfillment, and true confidence. The comfort zone is not a place of safety. It is a place of stagnation. Comfort feels good. That's why it's so addictive. When you stay within familiar boundaries, your brain rewards you. You avoid failure, rejection, and embarrassment. You feel in control. But over time, something subtle begins to happen. You stop growing. Growth requires tension. It requires stepping into situations where you are unsure, where you might fail, where you don't have all the answers. The comfort zone removes all of that, and while it protects you from discomfort, it also protects you from progress. Imagine a muscle that is never used. It doesn't stay the same, it weakens. The same is true for your confidence, your skills, and your mindset. By staying comfortable, you are not maintaining your life, you are slowly shrinking it. Why we stay stuck? If the comfort zone limits us, why do we cling to it? The answer lies in fear, not always obvious fear, but subtle, quiet fears that whisper in the background. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of the unknown, fear of not being good enough. These fears convince you that staying where you are is safer than moving forward. They create a false narrative. This is enough. Don't risk it. But what they don't tell you is the cost. Every time you choose comfort over challenge, you reinforce a belief: I can't handle more. Over time, this belief becomes your identity. You don't just stay in your comfort zone, you become defined by it. The biggest lie of the comfort zone is that it keeps you safe. In reality, it keeps you unprepared. Life is unpredictable. Change is inevitable. Challenges will come whether you seek them or not. If you've spent years avoiding discomfort, even small obstacles can feel overwhelming. True safety doesn't come from avoiding challenges. It comes from building the strength to face them. A person who has faced rejection becomes resilient. A person who has taken risks becomes adaptable. A person who has failed and tried again becomes unstoppable. Comfort does not build these qualities. Challenge does. The comfort zone doesn't just limit your actions, it limits your potential. Think about the opportunities you might have avoided, the idea you didn't share, the business you didn't start, the skill you didn't learn, the conversation you didn't have. Each of these moments might have felt small at the time, but over months and years, they accumulate into a life that feels less than what it could have been. Regret rarely comes from what you tried and failed. It comes from what you never attempted. The most dangerous part, you may not even realize what you're missing. The comfort zone hides possibilities from you by keeping you in the same patterns. There is a boundary between comfort and growth. On one side lies familiarity, predictability, and ease. On the other side lies uncertainty, challenge, and possibility. Everything you want, confidence, success, fulfillment, exists on the other side of that boundary. But crossing it doesn't require a giant leap. It starts with small steps, speaking up when you would normally stay silent, trying something new, even if you might fail, taking responsibility instead of avoiding it, choosing progress over perfection. Each small step stretches your comfort zone. What once felt scary becomes normal. What once felt impossible becomes achievable. Confidence is not something you are born with. It is built through repeated exposure to discomfort. One of the most powerful mindset shifts you can make is this: discomfort is not a signal to stop. It is a signal that you are growing. When your heart races before trying something new, that's not weakness, it's expansion. When you feel nervous before taking a risk, that's not fear holding you back. It's opportunity calling you forward. Instead of asking, "How do I stay comfortable?" start asking, "What discomfort will move me forward?" This single shift changes everything. To escape the comfort zone, you must first see it clearly. It is not your friend. It is not your protector. It is not your destination. It is a temporary space, a starting point, not a place to stay. The illusion fades when you realize that comfort today can create discomfort tomorrow. The life you avoid building now may become the life you regret later. True freedom is not found in avoiding discomfort. It is found in choosing it intentionally. Imagine a life where you no longer fear discomfort, where challenges excite you instead of paralyze you, where failure becomes a lesson, not a limitation, where growth becomes a daily habit, not an occasional effort. This is the life beyond the comfort zone. It is not easier, but it is richer. It is not safer, but it is more meaningful. And most importantly, it is where your true potential begins to unfold. The comfort zone is an illusion, a beautiful, convincing lie that keeps you small. But once you see it for what it is, you gain a choice. Stay where it's easy, or step into who you are capable of becoming. The journey of confidence begins the moment you choose the second. Chapter 2: Why Fear Keeps Us Stuck. Fear is not your enemy, at least not in the way you've been taught to believe. Fear is ancient. It is wired deep within you, designed to protect you from danger, to keep you alive in a world that was once unpredictable and harsh. Thousands of years ago, fear meant survival. It warned you of predators, threats, and life or death situations. But today, the dangers have changed. You are no longer running from wild animals. You are running from opinions, rejection, failure, and uncertainty. And yet, your brain reacts the same way, as if your life depends on it. This is where the problem begins. Only fear. Fear no longer shows up as a roaring threat. It appears quietly, disguised as logic, hesitation, or doubt. It sounds like, "What if I fail? What will people think? I'm not ready yet. Maybe later." These thoughts feel reasonable. They feel protective. But in reality, they are the invisible chains that keep you stuck in the same place. Fear doesn't need to stop you completely. It only needs to delay you, and over time, delay becomes inaction. Inaction becomes habit, and habit becomes your life. Your brain has one primary goal: to keep you safe. Not successful, not fulfilled, just safe. Whenever you step into something unfamiliar, starting a business, speaking in public, pursuing a dream, your brain perceives it as a threat. It triggers a survival response. Your heart beats faster. Your mind overthinks. You imagine worst-case scenarios. This is not because you are incapable. It's because your brain is trying to pull you back into what is known and predictable. The problem is, everything meaningful lies outside of what is known. So your brain, in trying to protect you, unintentionally limits you. One of the strongest fears that keeps people stuck is the fear of failure. Failure is often seen as an end, a confirmation that you are not good enough, not capable, not meant for something greater. But this belief is deeply flawed. Failure is not the opposite of success. It is part of it. Every skill you admire, every success you respect, every confident person you look up to, behind it all is a history of mistakes, setbacks, and lessons learned the hard way. But fear distorts this reality. It magnifies the pain of failure and minimizes the value of learning. It convinces you that it's better not to try than to try and fail. And so you stay where you are, not because you can't move forward, but because you are afraid to fall. Another powerful force is the fear of what others will think. Humans are social by nature. We are wired to seek acceptance and avoid rejection. This made sense in the past. Being rejected by your tribe could mean danger or isolation, but today this instinct often works against you. You hesitate to speak your ideas. You hold back your true self. You avoid taking bold actions. Why? Because of imagined judgment. The truth is, most people are too focused on their own lives to analyze yours as deeply as you think, and even if they do judge, their opinions do not define your potential. Yet fear makes those opinions feel powerful enough to control your actions. It builds a cage without walls, one that exists only in your mind, but feels completely real. The unknown is uncomfortable because it lacks certainty. You don't know what will happen. You don't know if things will work out. You don't know if you'll succeed or struggle. So your mind tries to fill in the gaps with worst-case scenarios. It imagines failure, embarrassment, loss, and disappointment. And because these imagined outcomes feel real, you decide it's safer not to move forward at all. But here's the truth: the unknown is not your enemy. It is the space where growth happens. Every new opportunity, every breakthrough, every transformation begins with uncertainty. If you avoid the unknown, you also avoid the possibility of something better. Fear doesn't just stop action, it creates patterns. When you repeatedly avoid situations that make you uncomfortable, your brain learns. Avoidance keeps me safe. So the next time a similar opportunity arises, the resistance becomes stronger. The fear feels bigger. The hesitation grows deeper. Over time, your world becomes smaller. You stick to what you know. You repeat the same routines. You settle for less than what you're capable of, not because you lack potential, but because fear has trained you to stay still. Every time you listen to fear, you pay a price. It may not be immediate, but it accumulates. Lost opportunities, unexplored talents, unfulfilled dreams, a growing sense of what if. Fear promises safety, but it delivers limitation. And the longer you obey it, the harder it becomes to break free. Here is a powerful truth. Fear is not a stop sign. It is a direction. The things you fear the most often point toward the areas where you have the most to grow. If you fear speaking up, your voice needs to be heard. If you fear failure, you are on the edge of learning something important. If you fear change, you are close to transformation. Instead of running from fear, start listening to it differently. Ask yourself, what is this fear trying to protect me from? And is that protection still necessary? Often you will find that the danger is not real. It is imagined, exaggerated, or outdated. Courage is not the absence of fear. Many people believe that confident individuals are fearless. This is not true. Confidence is not about eliminating fear. It is about acting despite it. Courage is the decision to move forward even when your mind is filled with doubt. It is taking one step when every instinct tells you to stay still. And with each step, something powerful happens. Fear loses its grip. Not all at once, but gradually, slowly, consistently. Why reshape your relationship with fear? You cannot remove fear from your life, but you can change how you respond to it. Instead of seeing fear as something that controls you, begin to see it as something you can move through. Feel it, but don't obey it. Acknowledge it, but don't let it decide for you. Understand it, but don't surrender to it. Every time you act in the presence of fear, you weaken its power and strengthen your confidence. The breakthrough moment. There will come a moment, small, almost unnoticeable, when you do something you once feared. You speak up, you take the risk, you step into the unknown, and nothing terrible happens. In that moment, the illusion begins to break. You realize that fear was never as powerful as it seemed, that the barrier was never outside of you, it was within you, and once you see that clearly, you can never go back to being the same. Yonimptav. Fear keeps you stuck only as long as you believe it must be obeyed. But the moment you choose to face it, question it, and move through it, you begin to take your power back. This is where your transformation begins. Chapter 3. The hidden cost of playing it safe. Playing it safe feels like the smart choice. It feels responsible, sensible, mature. You avoid unnecessary risks. You stay within your limits. You choose stability over uncertainty. From the outside, it looks like you are doing everything right. But beneath this careful approach lies a quiet truth, one that most people don't realize until much later. Playing it safe has a cost, and it is far greater than you think. The comfort of safety. There is a certain peace in staying where things are predictable. You know what to expect. You know what you can handle. You know how to avoid failure. This creates a sense of control, a sense of security. But this safety comes with an invisible trade-off. Every time you choose safety over growth, you are making a silent decision to keep your life exactly as it is. At first, that may not seem like a problem, but over time, it becomes one. The slow drift into regret. Regret does not arrive suddenly. It builds quietly, over months and years, through the choices you didn't make, the opportunity you hesitated to take, the risk you talked yourself out of, the dream you kept postponing. Each moment feels small on its own, easy to justify, easy to ignore. But they add up. One day, you look back and realize that your life could have been different, not because you lacked ability, but because you chose not to step forward. The pain of failure is temporary. The pain of regret can last a lifetime. Safety shrinks your world. When you constantly play it safe, your world begins to shrink. You stick to familiar routines. You avoid new challenges. You limit your experiences. At first, it feels comfortable, but slowly, it becomes restrictive. You stop exploring. You stop learning. You stop evolving. Life becomes predictable, but also less exciting, less meaningful, less alive. The irony is this: in trying to avoid discomfort, you create a different kind of discomfort, a quiet dissatisfaction that grows over time. When it's missed opportunities you'll never see. One of the most dangerous aspects of playing it safe is this: you never see what could have happened. When you don't take the risk, there is no failure, but there is also no discovery, no breakthrough, no unexpected success. You will never know how far you could have gone, what you could have achieved, who you could have become. And because these possibilities remain invisible, It's easy to believe that playing safe was the right choice, but unseen opportunities are still lost opportunities. The illusion of stability, playing it safe, often feels like choosing stability, a secure job, a predictable routine, a familiar path, but stability is not as solid as it seems. Industries change, circumstances shift, life happens. If you have spent years avoiding risks and challenges, you may find yourself unprepared when change is forced upon you. True stability does not come from avoiding risk. It comes from developing the ability to adapt. A person who takes risks learns how to recover. A person who faces challenges learns how to respond. A person who steps into uncertainty becomes resilient. Playing it safe may protect you in the short term, but it can leave you vulnerable in the long term. Growth requires risk. There is no version of growth that does not involve risk. Every step forward carries uncertainty. You might fail, you might struggle, you might feel uncomfortable, but you might also succeed. Learn, transform. Playing it safe removes the possibility of failure, but it also removes the possibility of growth. It keeps you in a fixed version of yourself, even when you are capable of becoming more. The cost to your confidence. Confidence is not built through comfort. It is built through action. Every time you take a risk and handle the outcome, whether it's success or failure, you prove something to yourself. I can handle this. But when you avoid risks, you send a different message. I'm not ready. I can't do this. Over time, this weakens your belief in yourself. You begin to doubt your abilities. You hesitate more often. You rely on safety instead of strength. Playing it safe doesn't just limit your opportunities, it erodes your confidence. The silent life. There is a version of life that looks fine on the outside, but feels empty on the inside. Everything is in place. Nothing is wrong, but something is missing. Excitement, purpose, growth. This is the silent cost of playing it safe. You are not failing, but you are not fully living either. And deep down, you know it. Breaking the pattern. Escaping the habit of playing it safe does not require reckless decisions. It requires intentional ones. It starts with small shifts, saying yes to opportunities that scare you, taking calculated risks instead of avoiding them, choosing growth, even when it feels uncomfortable, acting before you feel completely ready. These steps may feel uncertain, but they expand your world. They introduce new experiences, new lessons, and new possibilities. What if I sign redefining safe? What if safety is not what you think it is? What if true safety is not about avoiding risk, but about becoming strong enough to face it? A life built on avoidance is fragile. A life built on growth is resilient. When you develop skills, confidence, and adaptability, you create a deeper form of security, one that does not depend on everything going perfectly. The choice that defines your life. At every stage of your life, you will face a choice: stay where it is safe or step into something uncertain. One path offers comfort, the other offers growth. One keeps you where you are, the other takes you where you could be. Neither path is easy, but only one leads to a life of expansion, fulfillment, and true confidence. A life beyond safety. Imagine a life where you no longer let fear of risk control your decisions, where you take chances, learn from outcomes, and continue moving forward, regardless of what happens. Where your life is not defined by what you avoided, but by what you pursued. This is the life beyond playing it safe. It is not perfect. It is not predictable, but it is real. It is dynamic. It is alive. Playing it safe may protect you from failure, but it also protects you from success. It keeps you in a world that feels secure, but limits everything you could become. The question is not whether it is safe to take risks. The question is, can you afford not to? Chapter 4. The first step outside the comfort zone. Every transformation begins with a single step. Not a giant leap, not a perfectly planned move, just one small, intentional step beyond what feels comfortable. And yet, this first step is often the hardest, not because it is physically difficult, but because it challenges something deeper. Your привычки, your identity, and the invisible boundaries you've built around yourself. Why the first step feels so hard. Before you act, everything exists in your mind. The doubts, the fears, the what-if scenarios. They grow stronger the longer you wait. You imagine failure before it happens. You feel embarrassment before you act. You convince yourself that you're not ready. But here's the truth. The first step is not hard because of reality. It's hard because of anticipation. Your mind exaggerates the difficulty, making the step appear bigger than it actually is. Once you take it, you often realize it wasn't as overwhelming as you thought. Once or not the move. The myth of feeling ready. Many people wait for the perfect moment. They tell themselves, I'll start when I feel confident. I'll act when I'm fully prepared. I just need more time. But that moment rarely comes. Confidence does not come before action. It comes because of action. If you wait until you feel ready, you may wait forever. The truth is simple. You don't become ready and then act. You act, and then you become ready. Redefining the first step. The first step doesn't have to be dramatic. It doesn't require a life-changing decision or a bold, risky move. In fact, the most powerful first steps are often small. Sending a message you've been avoiding, sharing an idea you've been holding back, trying something new for the first time, speaking up in a situation where you'd usually stay silent. These actions may seem insignificant, but they are not. They break the pattern of avoidance, and once that pattern is broken, everything begins to change. The power of small wins. Small steps create momentum. When you take one action outside your comfort zone, you prove something to yourself. I can do this. This creates a small win. And small wins build confidence faster than waiting for big victories. Each step makes the next one easier. What once felt uncomfortable starts to feel manageable. What once felt scary starts to feel normal. Over time, your comfort zone expands, not by force, but by repetition. Moving despite fear. Fear does not disappear before the first step. It comes with you. Your heart may race. Your thoughts may doubt you. Your instincts may tell you to stop. But the goal is not to eliminate fear. The goal is to move with it. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the decision to act anyway. And every time you do, you weaken fear's control over you. The 5-second window. There is a small moment between thinking and acting, a brief window where you can either move forward or hesitate. If you hesitate too long, your mind takes over. It brings in doubt, fear, and excuses. But if you act quickly, before overthinking begins, you can bypass that resistance. Count down in your mind. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Move. Take the step before your fear has time to grow. It may feel simple, but it is incredibly powerful. Expect discomfort and welcome it. The first step will feel uncomfortable. That's not a sign that something is wrong. It's a sign that something is changing. Discomfort means you are stepping into new territory. You are stretching beyond your current limits. Instead of resisting that feeling, learn to accept it. Even welcome it. Because every time you feel discomfort and move forward anyway, you are expanding who you are, shifting your identity. Every action you take sends a message to yourself. When you avoid, the message is, I stay where it's safe. When you act, the message becomes, I am someone who moves forward. This is how identity changes. Not through thinking, but through doing. The first step is not just about the action, it's about who you become because of it. One is Hasamiao, breaking the cycle of overthinking. Overthinking is one of the biggest barriers to taking the first step. You analyze every possibility. You try to predict every outcome. You search for certainty where none exists. But action does something thinking cannot. It gives you real feedback. Instead of imagining what might happen, you experience what actually happens. And reality is often far less frightening than your thoughts. The moment everything changes, there is a moment, small, almost invisible, when you take that first step. Nothing dramatic happens. The world doesn't stop. People don't suddenly react. Everything seems normal. But inside you, something shifts. You realize, I just did something I thought I couldn't do. That realization is powerful because it proves that your limits are not fixed. They are flexible. And once you see that, you begin to question every boundary you once believed in. Your first step starts now. You don't need a perfect plan. You don't need complete confidence. You don't need to eliminate fear. You only need one thing: a decision. A decision to stop waiting. A decision to move forward. A decision to take one small step right now. Not tomorrow. Not someday. Now. A simple challenge. Think of one thing you've been avoiding. Something small but meaningful. Now ask yourself, what is the smallest step I can take toward this? And then take it. No overthinking. No delay. Just action. The first step outside your comfort zone is not about changing your entire life in one moment. It's about proving to yourself that change is possible, that you are capable, that you are not as limited as you once believed. And once you take that first step, you are no longer standing still. You are moving forward. And that changes everything. Chapter 5. Embracing Discomfort as a Teacher. Discomfort is something most people spend their lives trying to avoid. It feels unpleasant. It feels unfamiliar. It feels wrong. From a young age, you are taught, directly or indirectly, to seek comfort and escape discomfort, to choose the easy path, to avoid situations that make you feel uncertain or uneasy. But what if everything you've been taught about discomfort is incomplete? What if discomfort is not something to avoid, but something to learn from? The misunderstood signal. Discomfort is often misunderstood as a warning sign. Stop. This isn't right. But in many cases, discomfort is not danger. It is growth. When you try something new, your mind and body react because they are entering unfamiliar territory. This reaction is natural. It doesn't mean you are doing something wrong. It means you are doing something different. And different is where progress begins. Why growth feels uncomfortable? Every time you stretch beyond your current abilities, you experience tension. Learning a new skill feels awkward. Speaking up feels intimidating. Taking responsibility feels heavy. This discomfort exists because you are expanding your capacity. Think of it like physical training. When you exercise, your muscles experience strain. That strain is not harmful. It's necessary for growth. Without it, your muscles would never become stronger. The same principle applies to your mindset, your confidence, and your life. Without discomfort, there is no development. The two types of discomfort. Not all discomfort is the same. Understanding the difference is crucial. 1. Destructive discomfort. This comes from harmful environments, toxic relationships, or situations that drain your energy and well-being. This type of discomfort should not be embraced. It should be addressed or avoided. 2. Growth discomfort. This comes from challenges that push you forward. Learning, trying, risking, improving. It may feel difficult, but it leads to expansion. The problem is, many people treat all discomfort the same. They avoid both, missing out on the very experiences that would help them grow. Learning to recognize growth discomfort is a turning point. Discomfort as feedback. Discomfort carries information. It tells you where your limits currently are. If something feels difficult, it doesn't mean you can't do it. It means you're not used to doing it yet. Instead of asking, "How do I avoid this feeling?" ask, "What is this feeling teaching me?" You may discover a skill you need to develop, a fear you need to face, a belief you need to challenge. Discomfort becomes valuable when you start listening to it instead of running from it, rewiring your response. Your natural reaction to discomfort is to retreat, to go back to what feels safe. But this reaction can be changed. The next time you feel uncomfortable, pause, notice the feeling, acknowledge it, but don't immediately escape it. Stay in the moment just a little longer than usual. Take one small action forward instead of stepping back. This is how you rewire your response. Over time, discomfort loses its power to control you. The confidence connection. Confidence is not built in comfort. It is built in discomfort. Every time you face something difficult and handle it, you send a powerful message to yourself. I can handle this. This belief grows with repetition. What once made you nervous becomes manageable. What once felt impossible becomes familiar. And slowly, your confidence expands. Not because life became easier, but because you became stronger. The habit of leaning in. Most people develop the habit of avoiding discomfort, but you can develop the opposite habit, leaning into it. This doesn't mean seeking pain or forcing yourself into extreme situations. It means choosing growth when you have the option. Speaking up instead of staying silent, trying instead of avoiding, continuing instead of quitting. These small decisions train your mind to associate discomfort with progress, not danger. The temporary nature of discomfort. One of the most important truths about discomfort is this: it doesn't last. The first time you do something, it feels hard. The second time, it feels slightly easier. The third time, it becomes familiar. What once felt uncomfortable eventually becomes part of your normal. This is how your comfort zone expands, not by avoiding discomfort, but by moving through it repeatedly until it no longer feels uncomfortable. The growth edge. There is a place where discomfort and possibility meet. This is your growth edge. It is the point where you feel challenged, but not overwhelmed, where you are stretched, but not broken. This is where learning happens most effectively. If you stay too comfortable, you don't grow. If you push too far, you burn out. But at the growth edge, you evolve. Learning to operate in this space is a skill, and one of the most valuable you can develop. Discomfort builds resilience. Every time you face discomfort, you build resilience. You become more adaptable, more capable, more mentally strong. Life will always bring challenges. You cannot control that, but you can control how prepared you are to face them. Discomfort, when embraced, becomes your training ground. It prepares you for situations you cannot yet predict. A new perspective. Imagine viewing discomfort differently. Instead of seeing it as something to avoid, you see it as a guide, a signal that you are moving forward, a sign that you are growing, a teacher showing you what you are capable of becoming. This shift in perspective changes everything, because when you no longer fear discomfort, you remove one of the biggest barriers to progress. A simple practice. Start with this. Each day, do one thing that makes you slightly uncomfortable. Not something overwhelming, just something that stretches you. It could be starting a conversation, trying a new idea, taking initiative, facing a small fear. Over time, these actions compound. They build confidence, expand your limits, and reshape your identity. The lesson within. Discomfort is not there to stop you. It is there to teach you, to show you where you can grow, to reveal what you are capable of, to guide you toward a stronger version of yourself. But it can only do this if you are willing to face it. Most people spend their lives running from discomfort. A few choose to learn from it. And those few, they are the ones who grow, who evolve, and who create lives far beyond what once seemed possible. The choice is yours. Avoid discomfort and stay the same, or embrace it and become more. Chapter 6: Building Courage Through Small Risks. Courage is often misunderstood. People imagine it as something dramatic, standing fearless in the face of danger, making bold decisions without hesitation, or taking massive leaps that change everything overnight. But real courage rarely looks like that. It is quieter, simpler, more consistent. Courage is built in small moments, through small risks taken daily. The myth of big courage. Many people believe they need to feel brave before they act. They wait for a surge of confidence, a moment of clarity, or a sudden burst of motivation. But courage doesn't work that way. It doesn't arrive fully formed. It is built step by step, decision by decision, and most importantly, it is built through action, not waiting. What is a small risk? A small risk is any action that stretches you slightly beyond your comfort zone. It doesn't have to be life-changing or extreme. In fact, the smaller, the better. Examples of small risks include starting a conversation with someone new, sharing your opinion honestly, trying something you've never done before, asking a question instead of staying silent, taking initiative without being told. These actions may seem minor, but they carry one important element: uncertainty. And that uncertainty is what makes them powerful. Or, why small risks matter. Big changes are intimidating. They trigger strong fear, resistance, and overthinking. Small risks, on the other hand, are manageable. They are easier to take, easier to repeat, and easier to learn from. But their real power lies in accumulation. Each small risk you take does three things. It expands your comfort zone, it strengthens your confidence, it weakens your fear. Over time, these small actions create a powerful shift. What once felt difficult becomes normal. What once felt impossible becomes achievable. The psychology of repetition. Your brain learns through experience. When you repeatedly take small risks and survive the outcome, your mind begins to update its beliefs. This is not as dangerous as I thought. This reduces fear. The more often you act, the less resistance you feel. Eventually, actions that once required courage become automatic. This is how confidence is built. Not through thinking, but through doing. The compound effect of courage. Imagine taking one small risk every day. At first, the changes are barely noticeable. But over weeks and months, the effect compounds. You become more comfortable speaking up. You become more willing to try new things. You become less controlled by fear, and gradually, your identity begins to shift. You no longer see yourself as someone who avoids risk. You begin to see yourself as someone who takes action. Failure becomes safer. One of the reasons people avoid risks is the fear of failure. But small risks change your relationship with failure. Because the stakes are lower, failure feels less painful. And more importantly, it becomes more frequent. This is a good thing. Each small failure teaches you something. It shows you what works, what doesn't, and what you can improve. Over time, failure loses its emotional weight. It becomes feedback, not a verdict. Building a courage routine. Courage can be trained like a habit. It doesn't require special talent, just consistency. Start with a simple rule. Do one small, uncomfortable thing every day. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be big. It just has to stretch you. For example, if you tend to stay quiet, speak up once if you avoid new experiences. Try something different if you hesitate to take initiative. Take one step forward. The key is repetition. Daily action builds momentum, and momentum builds confidence. The 1% shift. You don't need to transform your life overnight. You only need to improve slightly each day. A 1% shift may not seem significant in the moment, but over time, it creates massive change. Small risks are the vehicle for that shift. They move you forward without overwhelming you. They keep you growing without burning you out. Facing resistance. Even small risks will trigger resistance. Your mind may say, "This isn't necessary. It's not the right time. Maybe later." These thoughts are normal. They are your brain's way of trying to keep you in familiar territory. But here's the key. Don't negotiate with resistance. Acknowledge it and act anyway. The action matters more than the feeling. Celebrating small wins. One of the most powerful ways to reinforce courage is to recognize your progress. After taking a small risk, pause for a moment. Acknowledge what you did. Give yourself credit. This may seem simple, but it is important. It tells your brain, this behavior matters, and when your brain sees value in an action, it is more likely to repeat it. From small to significant. Over time, small risks prepare you for bigger ones. What once felt challenging becomes easy, and because your confidence has grown, you naturally begin to take on larger challenges. This is how transformation happens, not through one big moment, but through a series of small, consistent steps. Becoming a courageous person. Courage is not something you have or don't have. It is something you practice. Every small risk you take is a vote for the person you want to become. A person who takes action despite fear, embraces challenges, moves forward consistently. And with each vote, that identity becomes stronger. A simple challenge. Starting today, commit to this. Take one small risk every day. It doesn't matter how small. What matters is that you act. At the end of the day, ask yourself, did I step outside my comfort zone today? If the answer is yes, you are growing. Courage is not built in grand gestures. It is built in quiet decisions, repeated daily. Small risks may not seem important in the moment, but they are the foundation of every confident, successful, and fulfilled life. Take one step, then another, and before you realize it, you won't just be taking risks, you'll be living boldly. Chapter 7. Developing a Growth Mindset. The way you see yourself shapes everything. Your actions, your decisions, your limits. Long before you attempt something, your mindset has already decided what you believe is possible. And at the center of that belief lies a powerful distinction. Do you believe your abilities are fixed, or can they grow? The two mindsets. There are two fundamental ways people view themselves. The fixed mindset believes, this is who I am. I'm either good at something, or I'm not. Failure means I'm not capable. This mindset creates limits. It avoids challenges, fears failure, and seeks to protect identity at all costs. The growth mindset, on the other hand, believes, I can improve with effort. Skills can be developed. Failure is part of learning. This mindset creates expansion. It embraces challenges, learns from mistakes, and continuously evolves. The difference between these two is not talent, it's perspective. Why mindset matters. Your mindset acts like a filter. It interprets every experience in your life. When you face a challenge, a fixed mindset says, this is too hard, I'm not good at this. A growth mindset says, this is hard, but I can learn. When you fail, a fixed mindset says, I failed. That means I'm not capable. A growth mindset says, I failed. That means I need a different approach. The situation is the same, but the outcome becomes completely different. The fear of looking incompetent. One of the biggest barriers to a growth mindset is the fear of looking bad. People with a fixed mindset often avoid situations where they might struggle, because struggle feels like proof of inadequacy. So they avoid new challenges, stick to what they're already good at, hide mistakes instead of learning from them. This protects their image, but limits their growth. A growth mindset does the opposite. It sees struggle not as weakness, but as part of the process. Redefining failure. To develop a growth mindset, you must change how you see failure. Failure is not a reflection of who you are. It is information. It tells you what didn't work, what needs improvement, what you can try differently next time. Every expert was once a beginner. Every success was built on multiple failures, but those who grow are the ones who don't stop at failure. They learn from it. The power of yet. One small word can transform your mindset. Yet. Instead of saying, "I can't do this," say, "I can't do this yet." Instead of, "I'm not good at this," say, "I'm not good at this yet." This simple shift keeps the door open. It turns limitation into possibility. Effort as a strength. In a fixed mindset, effort is often seen as a weakness. If you are truly talented, it should come easily, but this belief is misleading. Effort is not a sign of lack. It is a sign of growth. When you put in effort, you are building skills, improving your abilities, and expanding your potential. A growth mindset values effort because it understands effort is the path to mastery. Learning over proving. A fixed mindset focuses on proving intelligence, proving ability, proving worth. A growth mindset focuses on learning new skills, learning from mistakes, learning through experience. When your goal is to prove yourself, you avoid failure. When your goal is to learn, failure becomes useful. This shift removes pressure and creates freedom. Embracing challenges. Challenges are where growth happens. But how you respond to them depends on your mindset. A fixed mindset avoids challenges to protect comfort. A growth mindset seeks challenges to expand ability. This doesn't mean challenges are easy. They are often frustrating, uncomfortable, and demanding. But they are also the gateway to improvement. The role of feedback. Feedback can feel uncomfortable. It highlights weaknesses. It points out areas for improvement. A fixed mindset takes feedback personally. This means I'm not good enough. A growth mindset sees feedback as valuable. This shows me how to get better. When you stop taking feedback as criticism and start seeing it as guidance, you accelerate your growth, rewriting your inner dialogue. Your thoughts shape your mindset. Pay attention to how you talk to yourself. When something goes wrong, do you say, "I'm terrible at this, I'll never get it right"? Or do you say, "This is challenging, but I can improve. What can I learn from this?" Your inner dialogue can either limit you or empower you. Changing it is one of the most powerful steps you can take. Consistency over perfection. A growth mindset is not about being perfect. It is about being consistent. Progress doesn't come from getting everything right. It comes from continuing, learning, adjusting, and improving over time. Small improvements, repeated consistently, lead to big results. Becoming a lifelong learner. When you develop a growth mindset, you stop seeing life as a test and start seeing it as a journey. A journey of learning, evolving, and becoming. You become more open to new ideas, open to challenges, open to change. And this openness allows you to grow in ways you never imagined. Daily practice. To strengthen your growth mindset, try this simple habit. At the end of each day, ask yourself, what did I learn today? Where did I improve? What can I do better tomorrow? This keeps your focus on growth, not perfection. The identity shift. A growth mindset is more than a belief. It becomes your identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone with fixed limits. You begin to see yourself as someone who is constantly evolving, someone who learns from challenges, adapts to change, improves with effort, and once this identity takes hold, your potential expands in every area of your life. Your mindset is not fixed. It is something you can develop, strengthen, and reshape. The question is not whether you are capable. The question is, are you willing to grow? Chapter 8. Turning Failures into Powerful Lessons. Failure is one of the most misunderstood experiences in life. Most people fear it, avoid it, hide from it. They see failure as something final, a sign that they are not good enough, not capable, not meant for success. But this belief is not only false, it is limiting. Failure is not the end of the journey, it is part of the process. And when understood correctly, it becomes one of the most powerful tools for growth. The emotional weight of failure. Failure doesn't just affect your results, it affects your emotions. It can bring disappointment, frustration, embarrassment, self-doubt. These feelings are real. They can feel heavy and overwhelming. And because of this emotional weight, many people try to avoid failure at all costs. But avoiding failure also means avoiding growth, because every meaningful pursuit carries the risk of getting it wrong. Why failure feels personal? One of the biggest reasons failure hurts is because we attach it to our identity. Instead of saying, "This attempt failed," we say, "I failed." This small shift turns an event into a judgment about who we are. But failure is not a reflection of your worth. It is simply a result, one moment in time, not your entire story. The truth about success. Behind every success, there are failures, mistakes, missteps, lessons learned the hard way. What separates successful people is not that they avoid failure, it's that they use it. They treat failure as feedback. They analyze it, learn from it, adjust their approach, and then they try again. Failure as feedback. Every failure carries information. It tells you something didn't work. But more importantly, it shows you what needs to change, what can be improved, what approach might work better. Instead of asking, "Why did this happen to me?" ask, "What is this teaching me?" This shift turns failure from a negative experience into a valuable lesson. The growth loop. There is a simple cycle that leads to improvement. Try, fail, learn, adjust, try again. Most people stop at failure. They try once, experience discomfort, and quit. But growth happens when you complete the loop. Each time you go through this cycle, you get better. Not instantly, not perfectly, but progressively, detaching from the outcome. One of the most powerful ways to handle failure is to separate yourself from the result. You are not your outcomes. You are the person creating those outcomes, and that means you can change them. When you detach your identity from success or failure, you gain freedom. Freedom to try, freedom to experiment, freedom to improve, without fear controlling your actions. Reframing mistakes. Mistakes are often seen as something to avoid, but in reality, they are necessary. If you are not making mistakes, you are not pushing your limits. You are staying within what you already know. Mistakes are proof that you are trying something new, and every mistake brings you closer to understanding what works. Building resilience. Failure builds resilience. Each time you experience a setback and continue, you strengthen your ability to handle challenges. You learn that you can recover, you can adapt, you can move forward. This creates a deep sense of confidence, not based on always succeeding, but on knowing you can handle whatever happens. The fear of trying again. After failure, the hardest part is often not the failure itself, but the decision to try again. Your mind may say, "What if it happens again? What if I fail even worse? Maybe I should stop." These thoughts are natural, but they are also the barrier between where you are and where you want to be. Courage is not avoiding failure. It is choosing to try again despite it, learning with intention. Not all failures lead to growth. Growth comes from reflecting on them. After a failure, take time to ask, what went wrong? What could I do differently? What did I learn from this? Without reflection, failure becomes repetition. With reflection, it becomes progress. Small failures, big lessons. You don't need massive failures to learn powerful lessons. Small, everyday mistakes can teach you just as much. A conversation that didn't go well. A decision that didn't work out. An attempt that fell short. These moments are opportunities. The more you learn from them, the faster you grow. The confidence that comes from failure. It may seem strange, but failure can increase your confidence, not immediately, but over time. When you face failure and keep going, you build a deeper belief in yourself. I can handle setbacks. This belief is more powerful than confidence based only on success, because it doesn't depend on everything going right. It depends on your ability to keep moving forward, changing your relationship with failure. To grow, you must change how you see failure. Instead of fearing it, begin to expect it. Not as something negative, but as part of the journey. When failure becomes normal, it loses its power to stop you. You no longer see it as a reason to quit. You see it as a step forward. A simple practice. After any setback, try this. Write down 3 things. What happened? What you learned? What you will do differently next time? This simple exercise turns every failure into a structured lesson. And over time, these lessons compound into growth. The turning point. There comes a moment when you stop fearing failure, not because it disappears, but because you understand it. You realize failure is not here to defeat you. It is here to develop you. And once you see that clearly, everything changes. Failure is not the opposite of success. It is part of success. Every lesson you learn, every adjustment you make, every time you rise after falling, you are moving forward. The question is not whether you will fail. You will. The real question is, will you use it, or will you let it stop you? Chapter 9. Expanding your limits and possibilities. There are limits you can see and limits you cannot. The visible ones are easy to recognize: your current skills, your knowledge, your experience. But the most powerful limits are the invisible ones, the beliefs, assumptions, and mental boundaries that quietly shape what you think is possible. These unseen limits define your life far more than any external condition. And the truth is, most of them are not real. They are learned. The illusion of limits. At some point in your life, you began to form ideas about what you can and cannot do. I'm not good at this. That's not for someone like me. I could never do that. These thoughts may feel true, but they are often based on past experiences, fear, or comparison, not actual potential. What you believe becomes your boundary, and when you accept that boundary without question, it becomes your reality. How limits are created. Your limits are shaped over time. They come from past failures, negative feedback, fear of judgment, comparing yourself to others. Each experience adds a layer to your belief system. You begin to define yourself based on what has already happened, rather than what could happen. But here's the key. Your past does not define your future unless you let it. The power of possibility. Everything begins with a possibility. Before something becomes real, it exists as an idea, a belief that something could happen. When you expand what you believe is possible, you expand what you are willing to attempt, and when you attempt more, you create more opportunities for success. Possibility fuels action. Without it, you remain where you are. Questioning your boundaries. One of the most powerful things you can do is question your limits. When you think, I can't do this, pause and ask, is this absolutely true? Often the answer is no. What you really mean is, I haven't done this yet. Or, this feels uncomfortable. Or, I'm afraid to try. By questioning your thoughts, you weaken their control over you. Expanding through action. You don't expand your limits by thinking differently alone. You expand them through action. Each time you do something you once believed you couldn't do, you prove to yourself that your limits are flexible. The first time feels impossible. The second time feels difficult. The third time feels manageable. With repetition, your boundaries shift. What once seemed out of reach becomes part of your reality. The role of exposure. Exposure is one of the fastest ways to expand your sense of possibility. When you see others achieving something, it changes your perception. It shows you, this is possible. This is why your environment matters. Surrounding yourself with people, ideas, and experiences that challenge your current beliefs can expand your vision of what's achievable. From impossible to normal, every achievement goes through a transformation. It seems impossible, then it seems unlikely, then it becomes possible, then it becomes normal. What was once extraordinary becomes ordinary. This process happens in every area of life. But it only begins when someone challenges the belief that it cannot be done, that someone can be you, stretching your identity. Your limits are tied to your identity. If you see yourself as someone who avoids challenges, plays small, stays within safe boundaries, then your actions will reflect that. But if you begin to see yourself as someone who tries new things, takes risks, expands constantly, your behavior begins to change. Identity shapes action, and action reinforces identity. The discomfort of expansion. Expanding your limits is not comfortable. It requires facing uncertainty, letting go of familiar patterns, stepping into the unknown. You may feel doubt, resistance, fear, but these feelings are not signs that you should stop. They are signs that you are growing. Every expansion feels uncomfortable at first, but over time, it becomes your new normal. Small expansions, big impact. You don't need to break all your limits at once. In fact, trying to do too much too quickly can overwhelm you. Instead, focus on small expansions, doing something slightly outside your usual behavior, trying something that feels just beyond your current ability, taking one step further than you normally would. These small shifts may seem minor, but they accumulate, and over time, they create significant change. The ripple effect. When you expand in one area of your life, it affects others. Gaining confidence in one skill makes you more willing to try another. Taking one risk makes the next one easier. Growth is not isolated. It spreads. This creates momentum, and momentum accelerates transformation. Letting go of old limits. As you grow, some of your old beliefs will no longer fit. You may realize that the person you thought you were is not who you truly are. Letting go of these old identities can feel strange, even uncomfortable. But it is necessary. You cannot step into new possibilities while holding on to old limitations. Creating a new standard. Every time you expand your limits, you raise your standard. What once felt like a big step becomes your baseline. And from that new baseline, you grow even further. This is how progress compounds. Not through sudden breakthroughs, but through continuous expansion. A simple exercise. Think of one belief that has been limiting you. Something like, I'm not good at speaking. I can't take risks. I'm not capable of more. Now challenge it. Ask, what is one small action that proves this belief might not be true? Then take that action. This is how limits begin to break. A life without fixed boundaries. Imagine living without rigid limits, not because you are perfect, but because you are open. Open to learning, open to trying, open to growing. In this space, possibilities expand. You begin to explore paths you once ignored. You begin to create a life that reflects your potential. not your fears. Your limits are not fixed. They are shaped by what you believe, what you attempt, and what you repeat. Every time you challenge a boundary, you expand what is possible. And the more you expand, the more you realize you were never as limited as you once believed. The question is not where your limits are. The question is, how far are you willing to go beyond them? On and down. Chapter 10. Living a life in the growth zone. There are 3 ways to live your life. You can live in the comfort zone, where everything is familiar, predictable, and safe. You can live in the fear zone, where doubt, hesitation, and insecurity hold you back. Or you can live in the growth zone, where challenges are embraced, learning is constant, and your potential continues to expand. Most people move back and forth between comfort and fear. Few choose to stay in the growth zone, because the growth zone requires something many avoid: a willingness to be uncomfortable consistently. What is the growth zone? The growth zone is not a place. It is a way of living. It is the space where you try new things, face challenges, learn from mistakes, improve through experience. It is where progress happens, not because everything is easy, but because you are willing to engage with what is difficult. The difference between occasional growth and a growth lifestyle. Many people step into the growth zone occasionally. They take a risk, try something new, or push themselves once in a while, but then they return to comfort. Living in the growth zone is different. It means making growth a habit, not an exception. It means choosing challenge over convenience, progress over perfection, learning over comfort. Again and again, redefining your daily life. Living in the growth zone doesn't require extreme actions. It shows up in small daily choices. Speaking when it would be easier to stay silent, taking initiative instead of waiting, trying instead of avoiding, continuing instead of quitting. These decisions may seem minor, but they shape your life. Your future is built from what you do consistently, not occasionally. Growth becomes your identity. At first, stepping into the growth zone feels like effort. You have to push yourself. You have to remind yourself. You have to act despite resistance. But over time, something changes. Growth becomes part of who you are. You begin to see yourself as someone who learns continuously, faces challenges, moves forward despite fear. And when this identity takes hold, growth no longer feels forced. It becomes natural. The role of discipline. Motivation is unreliable. Some days you feel driven, other days you don't. If you rely only on motivation, your growth will be inconsistent. The growth zone requires discipline. Discipline is the ability to act even when you don't feel like it. It is choosing what matters over what feels easy. And it is built through repetition. The more you practice discipline, the stronger it becomes. Balancing growth and rest. Living in the growth zone does not mean constant pressure. Growth and rest must coexist. Without rest, you burn out. Without growth, you stagnate. The key is balance. Push yourself when it's time to grow. Allow yourself to recover when it's time to rest. This balance creates sustainable progress. Embracing uncertainty. The growth zone is full of uncertainty. You don't always know what will happen. You don't always feel ready. You don't always feel confident. But you move forward anyway because you understand something important. Certainty is not required for progress. Action is. The long-term perspective. Growth is not immediate. It is gradual. At times it may feel like nothing is changing. But beneath the surface, something is happening. You are building skills, strengthening your mindset, expanding your capacity. And over time, these changes become visible. What once felt difficult becomes easy. What once felt impossible becomes achievable. Letting go of perfection. Perfection is one of the biggest obstacles to growth. It creates pressure. It creates fear of mistakes. It creates hesitation. But growth is not about getting everything right. It is about improving over time. When you let go of perfection, you give yourself permission to make mistakes, learn from them, keep moving forward. And this is where real progress happens. The courage to continue. Living in the growth zone requires persistence. There will be setbacks. There will be failures. There will be moments of doubt. But you continue, not because it's easy, but because it's worth it. Each time you keep going, you strengthen your resilience. Each time you rise after falling, you reinforce your commitment, a life of expansion. When you live in the growth zone, your life begins to expand. You experience more. You learn more. You become more. Opportunities increase. Confidence grows. Your world becomes larger, not because external circumstances change, but because you do. The ripple effect of growth. Your growth doesn't just affect you, it influences your mindset, your relationships, your opportunities. When you grow, you inspire others. When you take action, you create momentum. Growth becomes contagious, a daily commitment. Living in the growth zone is a daily decision. Every day, you are faced with choices. Stay comfortable or take a step forward. Avoid or act. Remain the same or grow. There is no final destination. Growth is not something you achieve once. It is something you choose again and again. Your new standard. At some point, growth stops feeling optional. It becomes your standard. You no longer settle for what is easy. You seek what challenges you. You no longer fear discomfort. You understand it. And when this shift happens, your life transforms. The life you are capable of. There is a version of your life that exists beyond your current limits. A version where you take bold action, learn from every experience, continue growing no matter what. This life is not reserved for a few. It is available to anyone willing to step into the growth zone. Why? Living in the growth zone is not the easiest path, but it is the most rewarding. It is where you discover your strength, your potential, your true capability. And once you begin living this way, you realize something powerful. Growth is not just something you do, it is who you become. Once you begin living this way, you realize something powerful. Growth is not just something you do,